Hello and welcome to News Now with Kevin Dietz. Tonight we'll get into the Hillary Clinton versus Bernie Sanders fight. You'll hear from an incredibly strong mother who lost her 3-year-old daughter in a lunch table accident in preschool. Now she's battling with lawmakers to pass LILIANNA's law, which would make schools safer for other kids. But first, we're joined by United States Representative Brenda Lawrence from Michigan's 14th District. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. So I know you love your job. You love what you're doing. I talked to someone who had your job, not in the 14th district, but a different district, and they said it was so frustrating for them because they felt like they couldn't get anything done. Like they would start with something that they wanted to get passed, and by the time it was done, they barely recognized it. What's your experience, and why do you keep battling?
So I know for a fact that having federal government and laws and policies has a direct impact on who we are as a country. I'll give you Flint water as an example. As a result of what happened in Flint, we found through the investigation that one of the problems was that EPA knew the water was contaminated. They notified the local EPA of the state. The state and the governor did not inform the people. We changed the federal law that any time EPA is aware of contamination, they must make a public notice and inform the public. It's not like it's not my responsibility. And so it's things like that you find you can change laws and make sure certain things don't happen again.
So if we could have gone back in time and this
Yes.
law was in place, then Flint might not have happened because there would have been a law in place that said, hey,
Yes.
you have to notify people.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And it would force action. And so many people, like the pregnant women and the children who were drinking that water, who were most in danger, that wouldn't have happened.
President Trump today said that they were after me from the time I came down the escalator on day one. What's your take on the impeachment hearings? What's your take on the president?
So the impeached president of the United States, came into office with an agenda that he had tremendous powers, but he didn't have the checks and balances that was written into our democracy. And so he has made some decisions and conducted some actions that are not in line with what our democracy, what our Constitution calls for in one of the 3 branches of our government. The president seems to struggle with the fact that he can be held accountable by a legislative body and by the judicial system. And so what's happening today, the House has impeached the president. I sat in on those hearings. I'm very much aware of the actions and what the president did. I'm very comfortable and supportive of an impeachment. It is now in the Senate. Our democracy demands that we have a hearing in the Senate. Elections have consequences, and I think America is seeing being played out in front of them that some people in the House and in the Senate are only there because of their party, not because of their people that they represent.
Some people say the legislative branch is trying to take away the powers of the president or overexceed their powers. What do you say to that?
I say absolutely not. The president has, to give you an example, when he did the assassination of a foreign leader that we just witnessed, he has that power. But the legislative branch said, you must notify us if you're taking actions that could lead to war. So we're so fortunate it has not to date led to a war. And so he had that. I didn't agree with him. I didn't see where it was an intimate threat for him to react that way. However, he does, based on our Constitution and our policies, have that power. So I'm not trying to take that from him. I don't think his secretaries are doing a good job. Betsy DeVos is not the best person in my mind to be the Secretary of Education. Based on her beliefs and policies on education, we saw it firsthand in Michigan, but he has that power. I can't take that away from her. I can't take her out of office. That is his administration, and I respect that.
Do you think there's any chance that the president will be convicted?
He will not be removed from office. Absolutely not.
Okay. I wanted to give you some time to talk about some of the other issues that you wanted to talk about. Tell me about your congressional caucus.
So I am so excited. I started the Black Jewish Caucus, and as we know, there have been an uptick in anti-Semitic hate crimes around America. And history has shown that whenever there was discrimination or civil rights violations, the Jewish community and the Black community literally locked arms and walked together. The Jewish community gave their lives for civil rights in America. In our unique histories, Black being that of slavery, Jewish being that of Holocaust, we are so sensitive to the uptick of what we're seeing in America today. And we want to come together on a federal level as members of Congress who's responsible for the FBI and for all of the data enforcement of our civil rights to ensure that we're doing that. And it was an amazing kickoff. The room was packed, and there's a lot of energy behind this. We will be having a hearing on hate crimes in New York, talking about anti-Semitic, how we're dealing with them, what are your rights when you feel that you're a victim. And so we'll be having a hearing, and I'm excited about that.
Our time went so fast. We promised to come back. There's so many other things I want to get into, the census and a million other things, okay? Yes. All right, thank you very much, Representative Brenda Lawrence, for being on News Now. Coming up next, you're going to hear from a mother whose daughter died at the age of 3 in a preschool accident. You're going to see what she's doing to try and make sure that it never happens again. We'll be right back. Welcome back. 3 years ago this month, 3-year-old LILIANNA Kerr was playing at a Dearborn Heights preschool. A fold-down cafeteria table affixed to a wall suddenly fell and hit LILIANNA. It killed her. Her mother, Tabby, has turned the tragedy into an all-out effort to save the lives of other children by making schools safer. Tabby, thanks for being here. Your attorney, Greg Roll, is also with you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Kevin.
So tell us a little bit about what happened that day, and more importantly, why it never should have happened.
Well, she was in the gym. She was probably about 4 or 5 feet from the wall, and it just collapsed on top of her. It was a 350-pound piece of machinery that was built in the 40s. In inspection reports that I investigated, I realized that in 2010, all cafeteria tables and wires were supposed to be removed and properly stored. LILIANNA's death is proof that that never even happened, and she's actually the second child to die in Michigan from this.
Greg Roll, you investigated this. You found that this has happened to kids around the country, right?
There are at least 12 reported deaths, probably more, and a host of other injuries visited upon many school-aged children. We are handling another tragedy in Missouri presently involving a similar table collapse. And the unfortunate reality is it's a $3 fix, which is nominal compared to the tragic loss of life.
Yeah, so this is how it works. So the table's up on a wall like this, and it's like a safety lock in place, and the locks just broke off and the table falls, and that's what happened. But what schools could have done was they could have just gone and put bars across all of these, very secure, check the bolts, and these tables won't fall, right?
Correct. I mean, you think everything over time will wear down, and what happens is the locking mechanisms with being turned, et cetera, not maintained properly over time, erode and become less able to withstand that 350-pound load strength. And unfortunately, unfortunately, it happens. It happens. It'll always happen. And unfortunately, kids play in those areas, so they're moving targets.
And part of the problem also is during the special investigation report that they made in February 2017, the majority of the staff, including teachers or even office workers, they didn't even know the tables were in there. So how is that even possible?
You know, as a mom and having this tragedy happen, does it register with you at all that it's even possible that schools and churches wouldn't know that these are there, and they wouldn't test them, and they wouldn't check them, because nobody would ever want something like this to happen in their facility.
No, and we live in a false sense of security, so we're just expected to believe that our schools are safe, and in reality, they're not.
So you're trying to get Liliana's law passed to make schools safer, but you're having some trouble. What is standing in the way of a law that forces schools to inspect these kinds of things?
The Department of Health and Human Services opposed, the Department of Education oppose, and what blindsided us was the Michigan Association of Superintendents now oppose.
And is it simply money? Do you know?
Yes, partially money. During our last hearing in October, part of the issue is, and the liaison for the Department of, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
The Department, I just said it too. It's not Education, Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
They admitted that they don't have experts for these inspections, and that is on the Lansing video that I've posted in October, and it's just amazing. So how can you just inspect them and just say, carry on with your day?
Greg, what has to happen to make this a law?
Unfortunately, we have to get joint partisanship on board. We do have that right now, and we have to address the cost concerns, the cost containment mechanism. This similar law was enacted in Ohio over strenuous objection as well because of cost containment measures. The thought is that somehow this $3 fix is translated because of so many tables into $1 million project. It's not true.
Which
so
brings
there's false data.
To the table, obviously, there is an issue.
Well, yeah, but it seems like you could have something short of massive inspections. You could have it required that the principal of the school at least goes through and looks at certain items and sends a checklist to somebody so that you could get in front of these problems.
We agree, and quite honestly, what we propose essentially is to have someone appointed as an authority at schools that walk through and just do a general inspection, number one, and then highlight certain points, one of which are the dangerous points that we already know exist. What's so hard?
Tabby, what really needs to take place to bring justice to your daughter?
I'll never have my daughter back. There's really no justice. What happened to her was unnecessary. It could have been preventable. What all I can do now is put my foot forward, do the best I can, let people know these schools aren't being inspected properly. It's once every other year. It's nothing I can do will bring her back, but everything that I'm doing now can protect a family later on.
All right. You can read and sign the petition at liliannaslaw.com. Please go to the site, take a look, and if you agree with what the petition says, please sign it. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Senator Bernie Sanders has been a target this month. First, he was in a fight with Senator Elizabeth Warren over comments he may or may not have said about a woman's chance of becoming president. Now Hillary Clinton is gunning for him, saying nobody likes Bernie Sanders, and she won't back him. Joining me now is political consultant and all things politics, Joe DeSano. Joe, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
What is Hillary Clinton doing, and is this going to work?
Well, I think it was a concerted political strategy by Hillary Clinton. I'm not sure if it was necessarily designed as a short-term strategic approach headed to the Iowa caucuses. I think it's going to underscore problems for Bernie. I don't think it's anything like a knockout punch or anything. I mean, is it breaking news? People don't like Bernie Sanders and don't like to work with him. I don't know if that's breaking news. It doesn't seem like it to me.
What was the fallout, if any, from the back and forth between Sanders and Elizabeth Warren?
I think they both got splattered with mud. I don't think it really served either of them well. I mean, I didn't, I thought it was outright fascinating how Bernie apologized for his op-ed from his campaign, within hours of it being released, being critical of Joe Biden. I'm not sure they really got this the the stuff to stick through with multiple rounds of this. I don't think either of their campaigns are outfitted like that.
Yeah, early on it seemed everyone was going after Joe Biden, but that's changed now. Is that all based on the poll numbers?
Oh, absolutely. They're starting to realize that they're not going to be able to separate Joe Biden's African American support. Joe Biden's, unfortunately for him, doesn't really have a whole lot of those voters to rely on in New Hampshire and Iowa. There are a number of those voters here in this state. You'll start to see the Biden commercials actually start to go up here, I think, as they realize that voters here in the Michigan primary actually are getting absentee ballots very, very soon, if not already.
What about Mayor Pete Buttigieg? Can someone like him just sort of be the nice guy and climb his way to the top, or do you have to come out swinging?
I think he can surf the wave a little bit longer. I think he's got the cash to be well-funded past Iowa. He's going to do well in Iowa, I think, maybe third or fourth. I think there's probably 5 or 6 tickets out of Iowa, which, is a larger group than usually comes out of Iowa. But I think he'll be able to survive and be well-funded for a long, long time to be one of the last people standing. Really, his mortal threat, I think, is Bloomberg at this point.
Yeah, that's true, too. So what Democrat do you think is actually going to come and win Michigan, and does it matter who Hillary endorses?
I don't think it necessarily matters who Hillary endorses. I think the Obama endorsement is the coveted one. I'm not sure it's going to come in time. And we're far enough out now where there's scenarios where 3 or 4 possible candidates could win. I mean, we're still, 2 weeks away from Iowa. That's going to set the tone when the vast bulk of our votes are being cast here in Michigan. So I'm reluctant to put, a gold star in someone's forehead, not knowing how this thing's going to turn out. So far away from the actual election day itself, it's tough to put a fine point on who could win because I think there's multiple answers for that.
So everyone's watching the impeachment trial. I'm curious what your take is on it. And is it going to help President Trump get elected, or is it going to get the Democratic nominee elected?
I hate to punt. I do look at possible risk, and I see a lot of Republican senators voting to get rid of witnesses and new evidence. Inevitably, there's going to be other shoes that are going to drop that are going to, seem politically damning to the president. And now you got actual votes of people saying it's okay not to seek out new evidence or actually hear any witnesses. So I think that's more risk than I think Mitch McConnell was thinking he would have to endure at the outset of this. But I think it's going to be a net positive for Democrats.
You mentioned Bloomberg. Does he eventually have to get in this thing and get into a debate, or can he just run commercials and win this thing?
Well, he could run commercials from now until the end of time and still have money left over. So there's always that route. I think it's going to be interesting to see if he pivots to building more of a movement than, an electoral vehicle. What's interesting is he can afford anything he wants to do, but his ads are the most bland, boring things in the world. They look like every other politician's ads. And I think, he's got the ability to do something creative and different and has so far chosen not to. And I guess, that's on brand for Mike Bloomberg. He is bland.
All right. And who's going to win in Iowa?
I think Biden's going to win.
You think so?
Yep.
And will that give him a big push moving forward?
If you don't kill him in Iowa, it's going to be tough to stop him.
All right, thanks for joining us today. We want you to be part of the show. Call us at this number, and we will share your comments on the show. You can also check us out on Facebook. Tomorrow, we welcome special guest Wayne County Sheriff Benny Napoleon, auto expert Mike McInerney, and much more. For News Now, I'm Kevin Dietz. Good night.